This foam paddle is louder than the Boomstik and might be more powerful too. I picked up the Aireo Cyclone expecting another foam core paddle promising plush feel and dampening. And what I got instead was one of the stiffest, loudest, most aggressively powerful paddles I've played this year. And honestly, I kind of love it for that. But here's the thing. This pedal doesn't perform like most foam cores you've tried, and understanding why requires looking at who actually designed it and what they were trying to achieve. Full disclosure here, Aireo sent me this paddle to play and test with no strings attached. No money changed hands. I'm not obligated to create content for them. And these are my honest impressions from extensive time with the Cyclone. The retail price is $189, but you can get it for $170 with code MPB, which earns me a small kickback to continue creating content just like this. Here's where the Cyclone story gets legitimately interesting. Aireo was co-founded by Matthias Kling, a Stanford PhD professor who brought actual material science expertise to the problem of paddle construction. This isn't a marketing team slapping together existing tech. This is an engineer who developed a proprietary foam formula specifically for pickleball performance, and something very few paddle companies can claim. The result is what Aireo calls a floating foam suspension system, a 3-layer foam architecture that's actually pretty sophisticated when you break it down. The outer layer is polyurethane foam, the middle layer is proprietary pulse foam elastomer, that's the clean formula, and the center is a floating microcellular polypropylene core, or MPP. The whole structure allows for micro movement during impact, which Aireo claims improves energy storage, reduces edge torque, and expands the sweet spot. On paper, that sounds like it should create a soft, muted, plush experience, the kind of thing you'd expect from a foam paddle. And that's exactly what I thought I was getting into. But the Cyclone doesn't play that way at all. The surface is T700 carbon fiber with no fiberglass in the layup, which is a harder, more direct material choice. That carbon, combined with the 16mm thickness and the specific elastomer properties, creates a paddle that's rigid, feedback heavy, and uncompromisingly fast off the face. The engineering intent seems clear. Use the floating foam architecture for stability and sweet spot expansion, but pair it with materials that prioritize energy return over dampening. It's a deliberate design choice, not an accident, and it produces a paddle that sits firmly in the power and pop category. The elongated footprint measures 16.375 inches by 7.5 inches with a 5.75-inch handle, and it's USA Pickleball approved. The frame takes full advantage of elongated reach without pushing swing weight into uncomfortable territory, which is smart engineering for maximizing leverage without sacrificing maneuverability. My test unit came in at 7.57 ounces static with a swing weight of 112.75 and a twist weight of 6.35. The balance point was measured at 24.4 centimeters from the bottom of the handle, making it a little head heavy. For context, that swing weight is remarkably low for an elongated power paddle. Most comparable frames push into the 118 plus range, which makes a noticeable difference in hand speed. The performance metrics tell an interesting story. Serve speed hit 60.9 miles per hour, which puts it in the 89th percentile, so yeah, this thing can fire. Punch volley speed came in at 39 miles per hour, landing in the 82nd percentile. Spin measured 2,279 RPM at the 79th percentile, and my overall firepower score was 85. What those numbers suggest is a paddle built for aggression and quick exchanges. The serve and pop numbers are elite tier, the spin is strong and reliable, and the maneuverability implied by that 112.75 swing weight means you can actually swing this thing fast without feeling like you're dragging a boat anchor through the air. The first few games, I noticed the sound immediately, and I need to talk about this because it's genuinely wild. This paddle is absurdly loud, big, boomy, hollow crack on every hit, and I love it. You know the Boomstik, the paddle literally named for being loud? The Cyclone is louder. Some people are going to hate that, but personally, I enjoy it. It's got presence, and you definitely know when you've hit the ball clean, and so does everyone else. But if you play at a club or community with noise restrictions, or you're self-conscious about drawing attention, this is going to be a factor. What surprised me more than the volume was the feedback traveling directly into my arm on every contact. I don't feel pain during play, but after longer sessions, 2, 3 hours, my arm and shoulder definitely feel it. Now, that's a me problem, and I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying this paddle will hurt your arm, but I do believe there's vibration traveling up the handle that isn't jarring or uncomfortable in the moment, but accumulates over extended play. Same thing I experienced with the Boomstik, except there the weight was the culprit. Here it seems to be the stiffness and that direct energy transfer from the proprietary foam system not absorbing as much shock as a traditional build. Power was immediately obvious, drives carried effortless depth, overheads punished anything short, and serves routinely pushed past the baseline. This sits right behind the heaviest hitters I've played, maybe even matches them, but with way easier acceleration and better predictability. When I switched back to my usual paddle mid-session, I realized how much free power the Cyclone was giving me on drives. But here's where it got interesting. The pop is the real standout category. Punch volleys rocket off the face, counters jump with almost no backswing, short swings produce instantaneous rebound. If you're twitchy at the net, this paddle will expose every micro movement in your hands. It amplifies everything. I had to dial back my usual punch volley technique because the ball was just coming off too hot. Spin surprised me in a good way. Even though there isn't much dwell time, the ball doesn't sink into the face the way it does on some softer paddles. The T700 carbon grabs plenty of rotation. I could shape drives, dip thirds, and put bite on aggressive roll volleys without issue. The 2,279 RPM numbers matched what I felt on the court, which doesn't always happen. Control and touch require some adjustment. The ball wants to go. Drops, dinks, and resets all need a conscious recalibration period because this paddle doesn't naturally absorb pace the way control or even all-court bias builds do. Now, one thing I noticed over weeks of play, the paddle does soften up slightly. Stock and brand new, it plays very stiff and hollow. After 15 to 20 hours of play, it loosens up a bit and the feel mellows slightly. But let me be clear, this paddle will never be plush. If you're expecting a soft, muted foam core experience, that's not happening even after break-in. It just goes from very stiff to moderately stiff. This is not a pick up and play paddle for finesse shots. You have to calibrate it to control it. Stability was better than I expected. At 6.35 twist weight, which is solid for an elongated frame at this static weight, the sweet spot feels surprisingly broad. The floating foam structure does seem to help where mishits still fire with intent, and I wasn't getting those dead, powerless contacts you sometimes get near the edges. Off-center shots stayed competitive until about 2 inches from the edge, where performance dropped noticeably. The maneuverability is a huge advantage. This feels far quicker than most elongated power paddles, especially compared to similar floating core concepts that creep into the 120 plus territory. Hand battles feel fast, swinging big never feels burdensome, and there's room to add weight without ruining the balance, which I'll get into in a second. This paddle's identity boils down to one thing: uncompromising, aggressive power with elite pop packaged in a frame that's way more maneuverable than it should be. It's stiff, it's the loudest paddle I've played, it's feedback heavy, and it doesn't apologize for any of that. Why does this happen? The T700 carbon surface combined with the proprietary pulse foam elastomer creates direct energy transfer. Nothing gets absorbed, everything rebounds. That's the trade-off with Kling's design. You get massive power output and stability from the floating architecture, but you sacrifice the dampening and plush feel most foam paddles provide. It's a deliberate engineering decision prioritizing performance over comfort. This affects different players in pretty clear ways. If you're an aggressive player, this paddle will feel like a weapon. If you rely on natural touch, soft hands, and out-of-the-box control for resets, you're going to struggle. I tested this with about 4 inches of 1 gram per inch weight up the throat, which brought the swing weight up and noticeably improved stability. The basic specs, static and swing weights in the low range, support weight additions well without making the paddle feel uncomfortably heavy. That added mass also expanded the sweet spot slightly and gave my drives more weight and pace behind them. If you buy this paddle, I'd recommend experimenting with weight. It's not mandatory, the Cyclone plays well stock, but adding a few grams on each side smooths out some of the feedback and makes the power even more controllable. Personally, I enjoyed it more with some weight. I think it's a good fit for players who want elongated power without feeling like they're swinging a hammer. I think it's not ideal for players who need softness to execute resets or who prefer standard length frames for quick hands. At $170 after code MPB, the Cyclone undercuts most floating core power paddles by a significant margin. It competes directly with paddles like the Luz Inferno, which has a similar floating core concept but plays slower and less maneuverable. Compared to the YOLO Pro 4s, Gherkin Wraith series, Thrive Fury, or the Bread and Butter Loco, the The Cyclone gives you comparable pop and spin, but with a stiffer feel and more aggressive feedback. So that's it. That's the Aireo Cyclone review. This thing delivers elite power, pop, strong spin, and maneuverability you don't usually get in an elongated power frame, and that's not by accident. It's engineered by a Stanford PhD material scientist who built a proprietary foam system for power over comfort. I recommend it if you want pro-level output without pro-level swing weight, and you're willing to dial in your touch. If you need natural control or you're sensitive to arm feedback, skip it. Grab it for $170 with code NPB. If this review was helpful, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.